While we got guys filtering in, I just want to start by thanking you guys for coming here. It's always a daunting task when you look at the schedule and you got the 6 p.m. slot and Team USA is playing 20 minutes away at 7 p.m. So I've been coming to this convention for about 12, 13 years now, and this is my favorite piece of the year, this education piece of the convention. It's something that I've always enjoyed getting to, so I'm super humbled to finally have the opportunity to speak to you guys as a group at this convention, and I'm just super excited to be here. So I do want to say the way we operate, if you've got something to ask me, please raise your hand. You know, let's be interactive here. I'd hate for it to be a stale hour of us just talking through X's and O's. Would love to get you guys involved. If you got something, please don't hesitate to reach out or scream out. Just some introduction. My name's Keegan Wilkinson. I'm the head coach at Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York. I've been there since I started coaching. I got there in 2008 as an assistant coach, spent 4 years there as an assistant before being promoted to head coach. And my first year was 2012, so I've been there for quite some time, and I've been super fortunate to have a lot of great players and a lot of guys come through on staff that have helped us achieve some really amazing things as a low to mid-major type school in Division I, and I'm eternally grateful to those guys for doing that. So moving forward here, the first thing you're gonna see, you're gonna look at and go, what the hell is that? That's a Toshiba TV that has a built-in DVD and VCR. For you guys that have been around for a little bit, that was God's gift to coaching from between like 2000 to 2010. You had all the VHS tapes, all the DVDs, you could just plug them in and watch film. Why is that significant to me? My background is I played at St. Joe's University in Philly from 2003 to 2006, and I thought about this when Coach Mearns was speaking yesterday in his talk, which was amazing. When he took the job at Canisius, which is a MAC school, he accepted that offer for $1,000. And when I was at St. Joe's from 03 to 06, all of my coaches were part-time guys. They had jobs in Philly, they had teaching jobs, they were running all over creation, none of which are in college coaching right now. Not a single coach that I played for in college is in the profession anymore. And then I got to Marist and was fortunate to work under 2 different guys who are also no longer in our profession. So I always come to these things, and the second slide is usually a list of 100 guys thanking you. You know, all the guys that have helped me network, this, that, the other thing. This is my network, this Toshiba TV. I would go home at night after a long day of work, I'd throw in a DVD, a VHS, and I didn't have those guys that I was directly connected with, per se, but I was watching Coach Tierney's teams. I was watching the way that I was sitting with Coach Cannell at a meeting earlier. I've never talked to him, maybe twice. I've watched a Hofstra UMass 2005 quarterfinal game probably 200 times. I could recite it right now if you hit play on it. I know there's a lot of guys that share that passion, and I haven't had too many opportunities to thank those guys because it wasn't a direct conversation, it wasn't networking, it wasn't me stopping in and watching practice or seeing them in the office. I do have guys that have been fortunate and have helped me along the way, but a lot of it started with this TV and a lot of film and a lot of hard work, and it's ironic, but it's something that I know has transformed probably a lot of guys in this room. It doesn't always have to be the same path for each guy, and if you work hard and you're persistent at it, and you love the game, which I do, you know, it's gonna pay off dividends. So with all that happening, it's led me to this, to be here in front of you guys today, and again, I'm just super grateful for that. So the topic tonight, when we look at the next one, is scouting the defense, preparing your offense for success. And when I think of, if you go back, Coach, what that means to us at Marist is we're never gonna have the biggest, the strongest, the fastest, the best skilled guys. So what do we do as a team and as a staff? We put an awful lot of emphasis in our preparation. And we've been blessed to have some great guys, but we know that if we're not preparing like madmen, if we're not giving them a detailed plan to follow, we're gonna be behind that 8 ball. So we're gonna have to put a lot of emphasis into that. And we've been humbled many, many times over the years. We've had great success at times over the years. The reoccurring theme is when we prepared like hell, we were in a much better position than we just went into a game thinking we could show up. And we all know that's true. So our job as coaches at Marist is to give our guys as much confidence as humanly possible and to promote them and give them the skills that they're going to need to succeed. And this is relevant to today's topic because we're going to prepare them as hard as we can, as detailed as we can, and at the same time making sure we're giving them the skills to succeed. Not just watching the film, not just talking through it, walking through it, but giving them a detailed plan. And that's what you'll see tonight. You'll see different things that we do with our guys over the course of the week, whether that's in the meeting room on the field or, the final scout preparations. And I'm just going to give you one last thing here. At the end of the presentation, there'll be a QR code you can scan. There's a link on my profile on the app that they put out that'll give you direct access to this PowerPoint. So please don't think that you got to jot down everything under the sun right now. I want you guys to take a couple nuggets, be able to look up, watch, interact, and not spend your entire time in here tonight writing down notes. So why scouting the D? And what do we do when we go into the film room, say as a staff on Sunday or Monday to get going? We're looking at certain things when we build out our checklist. The number one thing is their tendencies. What are they doing repeatedly? What's their tendency on their approach? How far are they getting out to the ball? Where are they sliding from? And are they doing it consistently? Because if you see a team do it in one game but not the next, you're going to have trouble building out your scout for your offense. You need to make sure that these are things that they're doing consistently. And you need to make sure you're preparing for those teams, the things they're doing consistently. The next one's a little weird one. It says staff retention. What does that mean? Sorry, I've been battling a cold. I've got like 900 pills of Advil in me for this one. Staff retention means in the early season, everybody in here, if they're lucky enough to have access to film, you're going to go through 3 or 4 games, 2 or 3 games. In the early season, when you have limited film, you want to make sure that that's the same staff. So if you go back and check the year prior, you can find the tendencies and the consistencies when you're building out your scout. So that means if you see the same defensive coordinator out there, go back, check their last 2 games of the previous year. And if you're seeing pretty similar things, similar tendencies, you can bet that that's something you can be ready to build on and share with your team. The fourth thing on there is, are they system-based or matchup-based? This is significant because if they're matchup-based, it's going to be harder to scout. If they're system-based and they're super disciplined, like it says later, it's going to be easier to scout, but you know they're going to be very prepared and very well coached. But you want to make sure that you're looking at those things, because if you find those first 3, but they're not system-based, they're more matchup-based, it's again going to make it harder to build that out for you. What can we attack? What are we seeing on film that we can look to attack from these guys? Are they deficient in areas? Are they better in areas? That goes right into balancing strengths and weaknesses. If we're going up against, let's say, West Point, and we see that they're not quite as strong in one area, but they've got the 4 best pulls in the country, and we don't have great dodging attackmen, it might not necessarily mean that we're going to start pulling their pulls behind the cage or putting them into certain situations. So we need to make sure we're checking this down. We're making sure we're making a detailed list of their strengths and weaknesses. And then finally, how much time do we have to prepare? If it's a Tuesday or Wednesday, a quick turnaround, you're not going to have quite as much time to get into the nitty-gritty of the things, maybe not enhance so many of their different way they defend certain formations. And you're going to have to pick and choose. What are the things we really think we can exploit with this team? If you've got a full week, that could be 3 things. If it's 2 days, it could be 1 thing. Those things generally lead us to big, little, and invert offense. Why is that? When you go into a big, little set offensively or you carry to an invert, most teams have a specific philosophy, making it easier to recognize on the film. All of us in here could have a 1-3-2, a 1-4-1, all sorts of sets under the sun, but our motions may be different, our pops may be different, so we'll be able to see those tendencies and those consistencies. But generally, when you get to big, little, and invert, defenses have a specific way they're going to cover that, which for us, and hopefully you, makes it easier to recognize on film. The other part of that is the frequency of times you will see that on film. You may only see a mumbo one time in 3 games. You may only see a similar, high wing action that you run a few times. If you go through 3 or 4 games, chances are you're going to know how they cover a big, little, and you're going to know what they do when you deliberately carry to an invert. It also breeds situational awareness. Low clock, end of the quarter, man up releases, and you've got 4 attackmen on man up and 2 midfielders. You may have an attackman that gets matched up with a short stick at that release, which leads me in to the opportunity to get additional people involved. If you have a good understanding of what they're going to do in these 2 areas, you can run that 4th attackman out of the box. You can have him carry to an invert. You can work him through a big, little. You have a very good understanding of how they're going to cover that. It's harder to do that with those other sets that operate above the cage. And then finally, the ability to control versus short stick. Everybody in here knows it's easier to control versus short stick versus a pole. So if you're going up against an ACC, a Big Ten team, and you're concerned about operating against their poles in space, this gives you another opportunity to maybe have a little more freedom by carrying one of their short sticks behind the cage. How do we get there? There's 3-pronged approach here, and it starts in the meeting room. We want to start and be super organized. We don't want to have a 60-minute film session, especially if we have limited time to prepare. We want to build this thing out day by day. So for us, could be a Tuesday, could be a Wednesday, where we focus specifically on invert or specifically on big, little, and build that out through the rest of the practice. We want to make sure we're communicating with our guys in those meetings. You want to make sure they have a firm understanding of what you're seeing on film. Then build that out into your skill work and your drills on those same days. It makes sense for us to watch film on a specific thing and then make sure we're building that into our skill work or our live drills, as opposed to focusing on an invert, getting on the field, doing 5 transition drills, and then just expecting your guys to retain what you saw on the film that day. Enhance those specific things through your skill work. If you're seeing something on film that they're opening up, build it into passing, build it into shooting. Make sure that you're overemphasizing that so your guys have that confidence like you saw on the second slide when they get in the game and the pressure's high. And then finally review and apply those things live. One thing we do that may help you guys, and I hope is a tidbit, one thing that we did in 2019, and I want to emphasize, a lot of this philosophy for me, guys, came after coaching defense for 5 years. And that's why I'm here. A lot of times you get into an offensive meeting and it's, oh, we can dictate to them. They've got to adjust to what we're doing. Why not prepare? Why not be organized? And so I coached a D for 5 years, and I go into my first meeting, I felt these guys had never taken notes. They didn't really know how to meet. They didn't know how to watch film. So one of the things we do at the end of the week is we bring them back in small groups, just the attack. And we'll go through on the dry erase board in just 5-10 minutes. All right, guys, we see a big, little. What are they going to do? And if you've done a good job of building that out throughout the course of the week, through your film, your skill work, your live drills, they're going to get in there and feel pretty good and get on that board with their teammates. It also gives me, as the offensive coordinator, the ability to get the feedback from them. Coach, we feel good about that. That's something we want to get to. Let's make sure we're getting to that early. So you're getting that conversation, that dialogue flowing with your team, and they've got that enhanced investment in your culture, as opposed to you putting it on the scout, being it in their heads in film, and expecting them to execute it on game day. Create that environment where they've all got dialogue. And the biggest thing we saw from it, guys, we had to do it in 2019. I had to get those smaller groups in. We were starting a lot of freshmen. A lot of freshmen. Probably a lot of juniors and seniors that hated me. Right? And so I'd go out to the field. How am I going to get these guys feeling good? How am I going to get them to feel like they want to be here? You get into those smaller settings, and your senior, who might not play a whole heck of a lot, gets on the board and walks the guys through what they're going to see. When we get to a big little, they're now going to be more invested on game day, and your culture is going to improve as a result of that. Part one in the meeting room, what you'll see here, and I was laughing when I saw Coach Colin sign up for the meeting. If you go to that, Coach, you'll see here a practice plan. We zoom in on it for you. Every day when we get up to the field and we have meetings, we're going to have our goalies and our face-off guys. If you go back, Coach, I'm sorry. Goalies and face-off guys go out first. Then we're going to get up and watch film for 20 to 25 minutes. This goes back to being organized. You get them in the film room and you have 20 to 25 minutes and you're hitting on invert, big, little, mumbo, 1-4-1, ride, clear. It's going to be a lot to throw at them. So we would go in there, 20 minutes, we'd have 8 to 10 invert, big, little clips queued up, and we would hammer on those things, concentrating solely on that. When we'd get up into that meeting, Coach, you can go to the next one here. This goes back to my defensive philosophy here. This is why I laughed when Coach Colin was coming in. This is from 2019, I think, with Detroit. Our offensive guys are going to get this sheet. Well, why is this important? Guys learn in a variety of ways. Some guys are better just watching film. Some guys are better just walking through it. Some guys need to write it down. So we would give them a detailed sheet here, and this was similar to what we would give our defensive guys back in the day for scout work, so that when they're sitting there, they can write down those small nuggets that they need to pick up. All right, big, little, they're playing one behind, one behind, one behind. Re-emphasize it. The other thing it does, too, is they can take this sheet home. Our guys got a lot going on. They might watch film at midnight. If they've got a sheet where they can sit down, get their film in, and take some notes, it's going to help with that retention. So this is how it would look at the start of the week. And then hopefully by the end of the week when we're building out our scout, you've got different notes in there. This guy likes to press out. This is their worst cover guy. Why is this important? Well, if we're going to a big little, we want to make sure our guys know who they want to attack in that situation. If they've got a shorty that's great in transition, we want to make sure we're getting back. So we're building these things in to help them retain as much info as possible. The areas that we would focus on with that sheet, it always starts with their on-ball approach. It always starts with their on-ball approach. How are they approaching the ball in certain areas? If it's a high wing, are they foot high? Are they square? If you carry to an invert, are they cutting the field in half? Are they playing you and forcing you to a weak hand? Or are they playing you square? So that's the main thing. Everything starts with that on-ball approach. And these are the tendencies we're looking for and that we need to remember. You want to see it consistently. Don't expect them to play one team a certain way, and that automatically means you're going to see that from them in your game. Secondly, where's the help coming from? Is it a crease slide technique? Is it a coma sliding technique? Is it adjacent sliding? Is it no sliding? Is it matchup based? Are they eager to help or passive? Are they going to be ready to slide and blow things up? For you guys in here, Bucknell's a fast sliding team. That's their philosophy. They've been doing it forever. They're very good at it. Or are they more reserved? Loyola in 2011 or whatever it was, 12, when they won the national championship, I don't think they slid one time. Are they matchup conscious off ball? What does that mean? That's very important. If they're matchup conscious off ball and they get glued to their matchup, that's going to help you open up space for your Dodgers. If they're going to drift off an adjacent wing and just go with their man because they're solely dedicated to their matchup as opposed to playing that system-based defense, you're going to be able to help open up areas of the field for your players. Is it a disciplined group? I saw Coach Geeson in here. His group's always super disciplined. We know what we're going to get when we play Monmouth every time. Super disciplined, hard-nosed, team-based defense. And then finally, is it one behind or two behind when you're focusing on big, little? Are they playing both guys behind the cage, or are they sitting one off in front of the goal? Now, one thing to say here is regardless of the set that we're working on, these are the things we're focused on in our areas of focus. This isn't solely invert or big, little based. These are the things we're going to try and make sure we're seeing and picking up on film. Talked about a square approach versus a foot-high approach. Just to give you a visual here, this is an invert. If they play a square behind, the one thing that gives us is options. You can go right or left. You can see on the film or on the picture, there's a lot more space for that man when he's got that square approach. Versus a foot-high approach on the right, where they're cutting that field in half and they're simply saying, you can go anywhere, but you're not getting to this side of the field. That's why this is super significant for us. Why? If we see foot-high approaches, or a team that's going to force you to your weak hand with a foot-high approach, well, when we do our skill work, we better be doing some skill work with our weak hands, so that we don't constantly have to fight, disrupt our rhythm, bouncing back, trying to get to our strong hand, and fighting to get to that strong hand. Let's build it into our skill work. Let's just take our left hand. Throw that skip pass with your non-dominant hand. The next sequence here is just going to show you some different things we would be looking for on film when we carry to a single invert. So this would be a crease sliding technique, and you'll see our guys work off ball, and some of them will just stand still just to give you guys a visual. So if we're seeing that, that's that crease slide technique. We can see that mirror on the back side gets a little space when they're coming off that mirror. So the next thing you'll see is, well, how do they protect that mirror? They help down off that backside wing. Well, if they're a disciplined group, and we know they're going to help down on that backside wing, you bet your butt we're going to work on that skip pass over the top and be ready to throw it. The next thing you'll see here as it gets going is just that inside action where you see that backside, if they're undisciplined and don't come down to that mirror, can really open two players on your backside. And then finally here, or going on to this next one, crease sliding technique where they're jumping to the ball. You see that backside open again. Pause it, coach. What we've done here by having a high-low stack inside in our invert, we would tell our mirror guy to go opposite that Dodger, and we would pull a ball side cutter down to the Dodger, knowing that if this is their technique they're playing, they're going to have to jump from that mirror to that ball side cut. And generally, a lot of teams will do that. We'll put a shorty inside. That's a very difficult thing to do. So if we see a team playing it this way, they're going to pull that top center defender a lot of the time, and you can see the space that's been creating for that ball carrier. So just some clips here like we're sitting in the film room. Pause it, coach, thank you. The team in red gets into a crease sliding technique, so we're watching this as a team. We see a pretty square approach at X, which means we've got options. So if I'm a lefty, I'm ready to attack to my dominant hand, and we know they're coming off that mirror. So what's the next thing we're looking for? How good are they at helping down to that man? Coach runs it, This team was almost pre-rotating down this backside to help support that slide. So what are we showing our guys on film? Be ready for that skip over the top. Be ready to hit that. We're training their minds to get their eyes on the things that they may be seeing as they're dodging. This is one clip though, so that may have just been a random occurrence. What do we need to see? Consistencies. A deliberate carry to X again in the same game, a crease sliding technique, a pre-rotation down the back, and again, a lot of space on that backside. So we're telling our guys to be ready to look to that backside. The next clip here, you can see you got a 2-on-1 over there. Coach will pause it. More of a foot-high approach here from the team in white with a crease sliding technique where they're saying you can go anywhere to your right hand, but you're not getting to your left. And you'll see this dodger, I'm going to venture to say he's very left-handed. Watch how he approaches this foot-high approach. He's fighting for his life to get to his left hand. Look what he's leaving wide open on that backside. Everybody in this room, this is what I would tell the guys, everybody in this room can drive to their weak hand and throw that pass up. Drive hard and trust your weak hand. But if I'm just telling them that and we're not practicing it, they're not going to be ready to hit that thing. The next one you'll see is an adjacent sliding technique where you see this near side adjacent wing showdown. Some teams will come off that adjacent, which opens up that slot, that pass that we would call to the face. That's going to require that top center guy being ready to rotate across. When we see an adjacent slide, we're going to make sure our guys are driving up hard. They're probably driving right at this defender. And what we would be talking to them about that week is your natural instinct, coach, if you're sliding adjacently to me, your natural instinct, if I run straight at you, is to step at me. So we're telling these Dodgers, if they're going to be adjacent sliding technique, run right at them. Get them to commit to you. Don't dance. Don't let them stand in that gray area. Get that man out of that spot. Be ready to dump that thing to that face. So they need to be ready to rotate over the top. If it's a disciplined team that's ready to rotate, you can see the space that's now opened up top center on that rotation. Couple live clips here. The team in white's an adjacent sliding team. You can see they're forcing him that way. Drives up to his face. Pause it, coach. Backside's wide open there, but he's driving up and sees this adjacent step down. He's fully committed to him. So he throws it straight up to his face on this wing. The one thing you'll see, coach run it and then pause it quick, is they've got a right-handed player out on that wing. There is some value to that. Your stick's to the outside. So if coach is rotating to me and I'm a righty over on that side, my stick's protected. That one strength, though, doesn't overcome all the weaknesses to it. I have no idea what's behind me. I can't throw a pass over my shoulder. It's a very high-level pass. But I have no idea what's coming behind me. So generally, we'd get a lefty over there, and we'd say, we're going to sacrifice that rotation coming to our face, maybe widen out a little bit, but we're going to be ready to skip that ball through to the backside. Can see that man on that backside's wide open, but he can't get it to him. Another adjacent slide technique here. They'll step down, pause it, coach. You can see that skip way over the top. If you're practicing that, they'll be ready to hit it. The reason it's important is the more passes you're throwing, the more time the defense has to recover. Any skip that you can build into the offense or the dodge is immediately going to put more pressure on them defensively. So you'll see in this one, they go straight up the face. 1, 2, 3, 4. Defense is fully recovered and ready to play on-ball defense. So you need to be pushing your guys to throw those skips over the top and encouraging them to have that confidence. The next slide we'll see is a box technique where the defense will drop into a box as opposed to a diamond. We'll get there. The advantage of this offensively is you almost always know they're coming adjacently. You good, coach? Frozen, we'll get there. So we're going to be looking for similar things there that we would against that adjacent sliding technique if we see that box setup. Maybe if you hit escape, yeah, close that thing and open it back up. So we got to make sure that we're seeing these things. How are they approaching the ball? What are they dropping to in front of the cage? How are we going to attack that? Coach, you can drop right to that. Sprints all the way through this thing. We'll go straight to the skill work, Coach. We're not tech-savvy dudes. We appreciate the patience. Any questions so far that I can help you guys open up with? Beautiful. Again, all this stuff's online for you guys. Nice, Coach. Box sliding technique, coming to his face here, being ready to throw that thing up to his face. They'll have to go adjacently and rotate. Coach, you can skip to the next one if it's giving you trouble. Final thing we'll cover here in this build-up is big little. Are they one behind, where you can see that short stick sitting in front of the GLE, or are they going to go two behind, where he comes back there? Go ahead, Coach. Two behind, where they're both behind the cage, and that's almost ensuring that that crease slide is going to be there as opposed to coma sliding technique. You can go ahead, Coach. One of the things we'll focus on here, and we talked about early, go ahead, Coach, you'll just let it run, is are they disciplined with their matchups? You'll see these guys up top exchange, hopefully. It's all right, Coach. So what we're looking for there is if we exchange up top, are they going to follow us or are they going to hold their spots? And this is a big note for you guys. If they're a team that's going to hold their spots, and you've got one midfielder who's got 60 points out there with the guy that gets covered by a shorty every time he hits the field, but you know they're going to hold their spots, you can run that simple exchange knowing that they're very disciplined, but take advantage of that discipline, now getting your best midfielder potentially matched up with a short stick. If they're a team that goes with exchanges, we would tell our guys, make sure you're exchanging. What does that open up for our guys as Dodgers? That top side action. There's no adjacent support there in that situation. Nothing, Coach? Try bypassing that whole thing. There we go. So next, after the meeting room, we'd get down on the field and we'd get going with skill work and drills. You can go, Coach. All right. All right. Put the pressure on Coach by putting him up there to run the laptop for me because I'm not good behind the podium. How's that, Coach? So here's some of the skill work we would build in, praying that it works for you. It's not. Try shutting it down completely, Coach, Xing out of it. So if we're seeing certain things on film, we're going to build that into our stick work, and we'll do what we call stick work breakup. So as opposed to going out on the field and doing a full team stick work drill, we'll break up offense, defense, and do stick work breakup so that we can build in that skill work for our offensive guys and focus on specific passes that we're going to need them to throw. See what we got. There you go. Hopefully this next one will run for you. So we've seen a team that's crease sliding. We're going to go from X here and drive straight up and throw that skip to the top center line over there, making sure that we're getting live reps, whether that's to our strong hand or our dominant hand, That guy's sitting up top loaded, ready to receive the ball and ready to hit that one more out on that wing. If we're running effective offense, we're usually getting a lot of shots from the slot area where those lefties are sitting. They would catch it and immediately transfer that ball through to X again. So it's just a constant motion of drive, skip, one more X. Drive, skip, one more X. You can go out of there, coach. See if we can get something else going. Got all this queued up online for you. Apologize for the technical difficulties. All right. When we go to our skill work segments after stick, we want to make sure that we're hitting certain areas of our shooting as well. So this one that's up there and is frozen, there we go. We'll stay with that. Diagonal shooting, classic drill I learned from the Salisbury guys, but everybody builds this into their shooting at some point. So when we're looking at the invert and we see a certain slide technique, we want to make sure we're getting shots in those areas. So what I wanted to show you here, while a lot of us do diagonal shooting already, we would then build this into tight diagonal shooting. So these cuts are now emphasizing that ball side cutter. So they're getting action of cutting that ball side pipe, catching inside and finishing, so that we're building those same concepts that we're seeing in film into our shooting work. The next one that you'll see is what we would call paint the pipe shooting. You'll see the guys get out to the slots here. We just talked about it. If we're running effective offense, we're usually getting some shots from these areas. You'll see all of these guys are shooting right now to the low corner. So we call this paint the pipe because we're aiming for that far pipe. And what I would like to see is everybody hit that low corner. That way if someone's 6 feet off of their target and drills the top right corner, we know that they're 6 feet off. Easier for us to change or help their mechanics when we know what they're aiming for. So they go from low to hip, and then they'll bring it up to the high corner here. And you can see they're getting a ton of reps. So now everybody's aiming for that far pipe high corner. Driving through their front foot. Here's a couple nuggets for you. What I'm asking them to do is drive through their front foot, and I want to hear a violent stick. I'll talk to them about Tiger Woods frequently swinging a golf club. You can hear his stick head coming through, or his golf club head coming through. We want to hear that with your lacrosse stick. And then finally, we'll build in some hitches where they're stepping around and aiming for that near side pipe, just to give them some versatility in their shooting. But also, if we see a team that has undisciplined approaches, we'll be telling them, be ready to hitch. They're going to be flying out at you. Obviously, when you get into invert work, you're going to need to practice coming around the cage. Coach Moran from UMBC did an amazing speech either last year or 2 years ago on some dodging from behind, where this was included with that arc around the top of the crease. So this isn't rocket science, but if you're going to work on invert, don't go out and do your skill work and your shooting 10 minutes of time in room shooting. Build in the phases of the things you're going to need. And then finally here, you'll see mirror finishing. We're asking these guys to throw this ball directly over the crossbar or as close to it as possible. This is simulating us dodging and hitting that mirror on that initial invert dodge. You'll see a couple of them in the film as we get going here. We'll go on to that next one, Coach. After our shooting, we'll get into some drill work. I wanted to make sure you guys left here with a couple drills as well. The first one here will be animal one-on-ones. Mikey Herring from UMBC this morning talked about this same thing, which I thought was ironic, so I'm glad I get to show it on film. Not going to talk through the concepts, the keys, why I put this here, so that you guys don't have to write a million things down right now. You can reference back to this. You'll know exactly what you need for the drill, where you need the balls, what colors you need to be in. You can see the setup here. The way we do it, we have 3 cages going at one time, and it's going to be a sequence of one-on-one dodges from behind the goal. We'll just keep it there, Coach. Perfect. I mean, don't go big screen. See if it goes, yeah. So this is from last fall, so you see some guys in some funky helmets here. First one-on-one goes. As soon as that is over, that defender's going to reapproach to X for a second dodger coming in as soon as he crosses through the GLE. So we're putting pressure on our defenders. You'll notice where the offensive players are. This is another nugget we would give our guys. We want to get our heels to the end line when we're dodging and inverts. Why is that important? It gives us more space. And elongates their slides. If we know they're sliding and we make their slides longer, we're going to have our hands free for a longer time and have more ability to throw skip passes. So a pretty easy one, but we want to make sure if we're covering invert that day, we're dodging from behind the goal. So if we're doing one-on-ones, we're going behind with them. Next one, coach. 44 Bragg. The reason this is named Bragg is we have an athletic trainer who's a great guy, quiet as hell, had no idea how to pronounce his name. His last name's Bragg. We built it into the practice plan. Now everybody on the team knows how to pronounce his name. Don't do a ton of that. We're pretty easy and simple when we name our drills. Again, everything you'll need is built into this, and you can reference online. You'll see the breakdown here. Coach Ward from Florida Southern ran a similar drill last night. They were throwing to the middies, checking back. What we're doing here is focusing on invert and big little. So as coach runs this film, you'll see, and it'll zoom in there for you. The attacker are going to come in this situation and run some two-man games behind. So if we're doing big little, we can pick down on that GLE and simulate some substitution scenarios. We can put our middies behind here. They're going to transition down, and then it's coming in with a white offense on this side. So they're playing out this 4-on-4, but we want to build in these two-man games into our repetitions here. Coming down offensively in red, can see a pick behind. This ball gets kicked out, unfortunately. We hustle back, drive down this alley, throw this skip to the back pipe. As soon as that goal's scored, red's getting back on defense, white's coming down on offense, and you'll see them continue to work these actions behind the cage. So if you want to focus on big little, you can mix in those the lines in the middle of the field, could be mixed in with the attackmen and midfielders to make sure they're getting that big little action from behind. The one thing this will also give you is your midfielders are going to be playing both ways. So in the substitution instance, this is a great way to build your offensive midfielders into some defensive reps where their guys may be setting picks down for attackmen and putting them in vulnerable positions. Go ahead, coach. Part 3, before we get moving, I referenced earlier, we want to end our week making sure our guys are dialed in and ready to go and as focused and as organized as possible. So the last thing we would do before a game is sit down with them in those smaller meetings, build out our scouting report so that we're more focused on the tendencies of the defense as opposed to the tendencies of the defenders. Because we could sit there all day and say, this guy's approached a little weak, struggles with this. That's not going to be quite as consistent as knowing how they're going to defend certain areas of the field. So we would focus our scouts more on system-based stuff as opposed to individual-based stuff. What you'll see here as we go forward to the next one, hopefully it gets going, is just some live application. The first thing you'll notice here is the clock in the bottom. It says 23 seconds. Talked about situational awareness. End of the quarter, controlling the ball against a shorty. Coach pauses it here. They were a crease sliding technique. We knew we'd have that skip. That midfielder here is a right-handed guy, upperclassman, that just had the confidence to throw that thing lefty all the way over the top. Skips up top. You can see the backside vulnerable now because we hit one skip, and now we hit the second skip. So if you reference back to that blue and white clip earlier where they threw 5 passes to get it to the backside, and that defense had a ton of time to recover and get organized. You'll see another view of this, and this is why I included this stuff. It's not to flex our muscles that we played on ESPN. It's because this camera works a lot better than the student workers that are filming our games. So you got a good view of it. The next one here, end of the quarter, carry behind to an invert. Controlling against that shorty, pause it, coach. Talked about this, getting deep to the end line, spreading them out. If you're carrying to that invert and you're 3 steps below the goal or you're right at X, that slide's going to come pretty quick. So this is an area of field where you can elongate them and get them out. So I'd be telling our guys, get your heels to the end line. Spread them out here. So you'll see a square approach, which our guys now confident knowing I can get to my dominant hand. Pause it, coach. You'll see that ball side cut, pulls down that top center defender. You can see the technique that they're using on the wings is they're opened up like this with their toes pointed at the end line. So we were telling our guys this week leading in the game, if you're top center, they're going to have a very hard time recognizing where you are if that skip goes over the top of your head. So you should be ready to shoot this one. Ball comes over the top, a lot of space, step down from top center. I'm not showing the scoreboard here because of the score. I'm showing it because of the clock. There's 6 seconds left in the quarter. That's good execution against a very good team. You get another good look at it here. Midi dodging up to his weak hand. This is a box technique. So if coach pauses it, we saw it in there earlier, if they're playing a box technique where they drop into that box, the middle of the field is very vulnerable at times. So our dodgers, with organized film and skill work, are going to be dodging, knowing to the areas of the field where they should be looking. So this guy goes up to his weak hand, he sees that top center there, throws that skip straight over the top, and you can see the slot. I know we didn't get to watch that film of the skill work. Those guys up top are catching in a triple threat position. If that guy's rotating fast, ready to dump right over their shoulders. So the shape that our offense is in, if we're running good offense off ball, is generally a triangle. Meaning, if I'm catching that ball top center and we're in a good shape, I'm going to be able to make that pass a lot easier and at a higher percentage. You'll just see a view from behind him here. Can see that lane straight up top. Again, we got the full cage to shoot at. Pause it, coach. We talked about building guys in. If you can scout this properly, it gives you the opportunity to play more guys. 41 is the best shooter on our team. He's not the best dodger. He wasn't on the top 2 lines at this time, but we saw the way they were covering that, and we said, we can get Stevie involved. Put him up top center. So Hunter Embry's driving there, going, I can't wait to give this thing to Bickle. He's going to unleash this shot. So you're building that cultural investment in each other and getting the guys dialed into one another. Another one here in an invert. Situational awareness. We talked about man up had expired. Our best attackman, I have no idea why I did this. He wasn't playing on man up at the time. He comes out of the box when it releases and gets matched up with a short stick. So now you've got an opportunity to get him back behind versus Shorty because situationally, you know he's coming out and he's not going to have the best pull on the team on him. So he gets there to X, quick move, pause it, coach. This is that same pass we were throwing in our skill work there in our shooting. Be ready to hit that mirror. If they're not a team that's going to get down that backside fast, or just making sure our dodgers are ready to check that spot. Because if you can see it right now, coach, I want one more frame. The next time, you know that backside defender is going to be all the way down on that mirror. Look at the skip lane. Good spacing, good understanding of what we're looking at. Couple guys that were in different spots and set up really well. Go ahead, coach. Glad we got this film running for you guys. You'll just see a couple views here. Fans are fired up. Back behind again, just want to show that mirror look. Right over the crossbar is what we're telling them. Try and float that thing right over the top of the cage. Make sure that guy's in a good angle to catch and shoot, because generally, why is that, guys? Why am I asking them to go over the crossbar? That mirror is rolling to his right hand there. If we throw it off to the side, there's not a whole heck of a lot of a cage to shoot at. You can get that thing over the crossbar, now that righty's got the cage. Deep to the end line, spreading this team out. This is our best midfielder who got a short stick, so we wanted to make sure we kept them spread so they couldn't blow it up. Dodges do his weak hand because they're forcing him to his weak hand, and he throws that one right over the crossbar to the attackman on that mirror side. Another one here. This was against the best short stick in our conference. So what we're saying in the huddle is they have a lot of confidence in this guy. And we had known that from watching the film. They're going to have a lot of confidence in him. Be ready for them not to just slide right away. They're going to trust this guy. You may be able to do a multiple dodge sequence, bounce out and re-dodge. The other thing we saw, if you look in the middle, is this team, instead of coming from the mirror, was coming from the man inside, that shorty or that pole inside. So what we were looking to do here was make sure we sent that ball side cutter, because you'll see our best shooter on the backside wing here, if coach runs it and pauses it again. Our best shooter's out on that wing, on that slot, wide open. So we were telling our guy, hey, be ready for two things. Be ready to grind out your dodge because they might not slide. Secondly, if they force you to your left, we're going to cut that ball side hard, hit the skip. You're going to have Pareca on that backside wing. Throw it to him. He ends up grinding it out because he knows they weren't ready to go. So if you check back to early in the presentation, this team that's on defense was in red at the time, and we had saw on film that they were pre-rotating down that backside. So coach runs it. We make sure we knew that that guy would be ready to fly down that backside. So this is a freshman midfielder at the time, and we talk about it to this day. He knew he was throwing this pass before he even started dodging. He knew he was throwing it before we even started. He's dodging to his right hand, throws it all the way over the top as coach runs it. You can see that defender all the way down the back. So we're going in, hey, when we see that invert, you know they're pre-rotating. Be ready to throw that skip over the top to your teammates. We've practiced that pass in practice. I'm not showing the scoreboard for any other reason but to show that it had 2 seconds on the clock. So it's another time where we were able to control the ball against a short stick, be efficient and smart and situationally aware at the end of the quarter. Now you get into a couple two-man games here. These are our last clips, but we see one behind. That's the first thing we're checking when we're watching Big Little. One behind versus two behind. So you see one behind, we're going to drive up, be ready to throw back. It's freezing on us again. So when we see one behind, we know that they're going to be supporting that the defender with that coma sliding technique potentially. So we'd be ready to throw back and attack opposite. So we would build that into our skill work as well. Passes where we're driving in, rolling back, throw back across the grain. Praying that we get this back up for you guys. I know we got a couple minutes here before Coach Childs gets going. We got 2 more minutes. You may have to hear the bad music I was listening to when I screen recorded this stuff. Thanks, Coach. The other thing of note here is this team was matchup based. They felt very confident in their matchups with us. So we were telling our guys, be ready to exchange up top. Joe Tierney, be ready to get top side. There will not be an adjacent rotation down that back side or a hedge step. You can see he cuts in, pulls that defender out of the way, opens up top side. Same game, one behind, throw back, drive opposite. This was an attackman that came out of the box simply to run some Big Little. Go ahead, Coach, just run it. And you get that 2-on-1 game going with 2 attackmen. One behind again, deep to the end line, dodge hard, throw back. You'll notice that our guys aren't doing a ton of rolling. If we can throw across our body, It's going to get there faster and give us more time to drive away from that pass. Different technique here, why we wanted to show it. This team was super disciplined, very well coached. But they went two behind, and they dropped into almost an invert style look in front of the cage. Well, when we see two behind, hopefully a nugget you guys can take, we're telling our guys and we're working in practice on inside rolls. That coma slide technique's not there. They've got two behind. That means the help's coming from the crease. If we can win an inside roll, it usually either guarantees we're going to get a goal, score, or we're going to get pushed in the crease. Because that support's coming from the crease down. So you'll see us drive up here. He knows he's got the inside there and wins that inside roll. The other thing you notice is pretty similar technique to that invert. That shorty's going to go inside. So we made sure as we dodged this, we had a ball side cutter. Just like that tight diagonal passing, shooting. Quick little pass inside to a lefty for a finish. Last clip here, two behind. We know we've got inside space. Our guys have watched this all week. We knew how they're going to cover it. So we're ready to win inside rolls. No support inside. You'll see another view of it here from behind the cage. Two behind. Can see all that room. Pause it, coach. So what we're telling our attackmen and our guys inside that week, get up higher. Get up higher inside on the crease. Don't cut down early and clog that up. Spread them out. You can see they've got their backs to the balls here inside. There's absolutely no support. So we're going to drive up hard, hit that inside roll, and get top side inside the cage. Big goal for us in a conference matchup. And again, I'm using that film because it was a high-level camera. Last one here, coach. I told you guys earlier, and we'll wrap this up. That QR code, if you can scan it now, will take you directly to the presentation and any of the work that we've done in the past, whether it was through the IMLCA or when Richmond put together the coaching through cancellation stuff a few years ago. You'll have access to all of our YouTube videos. Tried to be as organized for you guys as humanly possible, and I'm glad we were because of the technical difficulties. It'll also take you to my contact info, so if you have any questions at all, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me. The next thing is, I just want to say before we close up here and I let Coach Childs go, talked about that TV and how that related to my story. I've been at Marist now for 12, 13 years as the head coach. I've been very blessed to work with and coach some great players. Coach against some amazing coaches. I was thinking about it this morning. We went into Maryland my first year as a head coach, and I went into that game saying, we're just going to play. They were up 8-0 before we could blink. I sat down with the coaches three weeks later. We were going to play Duke. I said, I'm never losing like that again. We need to control the ball. We need to be smart. We need to make sure we're preparing these guys to put us in a position to compete. We lost that Duke team by a goal. The most important part of the story, though, was we walked out of that Duke game, first-year head coach, going, oh, yeah, we got this now. 3 weeks later, Siena beat us worse than Maryland did. Because we got cocky, we got big on our britches, we didn't prep the right way. So we try and be as super disciplined as we can and prep for every game in the same manner. And the last thing I'll say on that is, as a young head coach and a guy with not a huge network, the biggest blessing I've had is my assistant coaches. And there's guys in this room that I've loved working with. Each and every one of them. And there's other guys that have come through our program and are now in the coaching world. And when I got to Marist in 2008, there wasn't a soul. So I'm very proud of them. Very proud to be the head coach. I don't tell them that a whole hell of a lot. I'm not an easy guy to work for, I'm sure. Not an easy guy to play for. But I'm just a very lucky guy to have been around so many awesome guys, and I'm very proud of all those guys that are in coaching right now. So if anyone has any questions, I'll step out to the side. so Coach can get going. But thank you guys so much for the opportunity to speak to you.